Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Hope you're well. I would like to ask everyone before we get started to close your eyes and take a deep breath and listen to the stillness and to the peace. Can I breathe? And where do we go from here? I am Ebony Weber, CEO of MANRRS, and it is truly my honor to welcome you to this important session as part of our summer webinar series. Thank you for choosing to spend time with us today. As we all know, and definitely what we've been watching on the news here lately, we're living in a moment marked by uncertainty, social unrest, global chaos, and rhetoric that can feel like it's taking us backwards. Every day, especially for those from marginalized communities, there are reminders that the fight for equity, inclusion, and justice is ongoing and often very exhausting. That's exactly why today's conversation is so vital. Today is an opportunity to pause and breathe amid the noise. It's a chance to acknowledge the very real emotion and psychological weight as well that we all may be carrying, and understanding that we're doing this together. Our panelists will lead us in an honest, open exploration of how these current events impact our well-being, our sense of belonging, and our capacity to move forward, which is so very important to keep moving forward. They will share strategies to help us protect our mental health, stay civically engaged, and advocate for what's right personally and professional. Today's webinar is an invitation to process what we're feeling, ground ourselves in truth, and embrace the resilience we need to look ahead. Whether you are a student, a community leader, or a seasoned professional, I hope that you leave here feeling a little more supported, a little more equipped, and a lot more connected to one another. So, on behalf of MANRRS, thank you for your commitment to showing up for yourself and the people around you. Thank you for choosing to spend your lunch hour with us. And let's listen, share, and most importantly, let's take this time to celebrate ourselves so we can continue the work that lies ahead. With that, I am honored to officially welcome you to this session. I now welcome today's moderator, Dallas Cooks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dallas Cooks, and I am the MANRRS National Parliamentarian. In a time marked by uncertainty, social unrest, and a resurgence of harmful rhetoric and policy rollbacks, many individuals, especially those from marginalized communities, are left asking, where do we go from here? This session is a call to pause and breathe amidst the noise, like Ebony said, and we're going to explore emotional and psychological toll of living in a society. For our panelists, I ask that you introduce yourself to the audience and answer the following question. Can I breathe? As a both a literal and a symbolic question, what does that phrase mean to you in this season of your life? So please introduce yourself and answer the question.
Do we have an order? No?
Nicole, you can start us off. Sorry.
I'll jump in. We're like, who's gonna go first? So Yat A, Nicole Devon and Shay. I'm Nicole Devon. I am the Executive Director of the Tribal Agricultural Fellowship. I have spent most of my career, a little bit, so I'm Mescalero Apache and African American, but I grew up in Washington State on the Yakima Reservation, and then later in Spokane, Washington, which has a large rural, a large urban population of Native folks. And I've spent most of my career in education. I grew up a farm kid. We had a cow-calf operation and apples because it was Washington. And and then I moved to a way to go to college, and I wanted nothing to do with farming, ranching, any of that stuff. And so I decided that I would go into education, and I've spent most of my career being the crazy auntie, crazy mom for Native students in higher education. And So I said I wasn't going to do this with Can I Breathe? But literally, I live in New Orleans now, so it's hard to breathe because it's freaking humid here. And also, I'm also at the stage in my life where I'm a woman of a certain age. And so I'm literally fighting with my body right now. Like, we used to get along really great, and now we don't trust each other. So kind of going through a little bit of that, and working out the kinks when it comes to that. And then literally I've been finding myself lately walking into literally holding my breath, and having to remember to breathe when I'm watching something or seeing something. So I've been doing literally remembering to breathe, and that, don't hold your breath, you need air and you need grounding. And so that's a little bit of what I've been doing in all of those spheres of being. Thank you.
And Keegan, you can go next.
Great. Thanks, Dallas. I'd say I think like many on this call, I'm catching my breath. My name's Keegan Kautsky, and for the last 20 years, I've been, focused on how do we prepare the workforce of the future? How do we build programs and partnerships to expand access and opportunity, especially to young people, so that they can find their place and find their passion and their purpose in food and agriculture and natural resources and health and human sciences? And it, has been an incredible journey and such a joy to do this critical work. And for many of those years, I was with the World Food Prize Foundation, heading their global programs and partnerships. But the last few years, I've had the incredible honor of serving the American people and being a senior advisor for research, education, and economics at USDA. Unfortunately, I'm one of those tens of thousands of federal employees that was fired illegally by DOJ and then brought back into our jobs by the courts because what was done was illegal and did violate due process in the federal government. And then we were pressured to either resign or retire early. So again, in many ways, a lot of my professional career and life, has really been thrown upside down recently. I also got married recently, and the man that I love, the love of my life, lives in another country. So at the same time, we are personally navigating the US immigration system, and we don't know when we will be able to live together, when we'll be able to really start that life and be able to adopt or foster and begin our family. And a lot of those things that matter to us in our personal lives are at risk right now and are unknown. And so in many ways, this is kind of confusing and uncomfortable, and there's a lot to be anxious and stressed about. But I've really found that also it's been an incredible time to refocus on myself, on my family, on my community, and to really recenter those values that matter to me and to refocus on the work that's important. So in a lot of ways, while this has been a difficult time, I'm also incredibly thankful for it. So excited to be part of this conversation.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Hayes. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, also founder of an organization called Man to Man Atlanta. My daytime work is centered around working with homeless veterans. In that homeless veteran population, I work in the Atlanta VA domiciliary. So those veterans come and they live here in our program for 45 to 90 days. And we really focus on getting them stabilized in their mental health, getting them off substances and into some level of permanent housing or transitional housing based on what it is that they need and desire. In my side work, I am a man who is passionate about men's mental health, particularly Black men's mental health. And so the organization that I founded called Man to Man is about leaning more into men's mental health and just providing safe space and brave space for men to talk about the things that we experience in our daily lives as we endeavor to be better brothers, uncles, husbands, children, and everything else that the world calls for us to be. MANRRS is very close to my heart. My oldest sister is a part of the Auburn University MANRRS chapter, she's the head of that chapter, and she works with the youth in that capacity and is always pulling me in to do something. So I've established a very long-standing relationship with MANRRS. So I really honor the work that is being done there. And Ebony started us off with something just around the question of can I breathe? I would like to do a little bit of a mindfulness exercise along those same lines. And I'll just ask that we all take a moment to kind of bring ourselves to the present moment. I'll ask you again to kind of close your eyes, rest your hands on your lap, and then just take a deep breath in, counting to 5 in your mind, and briefly taking in the quietness of this moment. And as you think about those things that you may have come into work with, things that happened on your commute, the news that you are listening to, I want you to take time and slowly breathe those things out. We're focusing now on just being here in the moment. No worries about finances, no worries about other problems that may be happening in our lives, what we're going to do for the 4th of July, how we'll finance it. You are here in this moment and focused on where we go from here. So now I ask that you open your eyes and just say to yourself, I give myself permission to take a moment to breathe in between. So can I breathe? The answer, of course, is yes. But I believe that we all do so with intention. And that means being able to set our minds on the task, be it one task or multiple tasks, just the thing that's happening for us at hand. And I've learned at this big age that any aim, any endeavor, any relationship that I'm involved in, that I experience any level of success in, it requires intention. And I think that we can allow the world to overwhelm us in a moment and keep us from breathing, right? Keep us from having gratitude for the moments that are ahead of us, or we can be intentional and take a pause and say that I am going to breathe in between. Because the only way that I'm able to get my breath up and attack this work and do what I'm called to do is if I have my breath together. So many of us, when I first started back working out, I couldn't get my wind, right? I couldn't get my wind together because it had been so long since I've been working out. And I believe that we experience success just in the constant doing of the work. And I think the powers that be sometimes would seek to overwhelm us with everything that we have going on. So then we're exhausted and we're tired and we're always thinking about the things that are not happening. So we don't focus on the task at hand. So being intentional about breathing and making sure that we have our wind up is important. So the way that we breathe is just with some level of intention and being consistently good rather than occasionally great. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you all so much for that. Our first question, in today's political and social climate, what does moving forward actually look like? And so Scott, will have you, and then Keegan, and then Nicole, and then we'll go ahead and start there. What does moving forward actually look like in today's political and social climate?
So for me, moving forward really means that I am being intentional about what it is that I want to see happen next. That doesn't mean that anything is starting with perfection. It just means that I am allowing myself the opportunity to start doing the work again on today. And so for me, as a matter of moving forward, especially with everything that we see happening around us, I believe that we start moving forward just with gratitude. It is that, not that, oh my God, I got to go to work today. Oh my God, I got to face this new thing. Oh my God, what has this administration done now? And it can feel like a very heavy woe is me, but it is more of centering myself around like, I am the person who's called to do this work, right? And I have gratitude for the opportunity that I have to spark change in a way that feels unique and directed towards my expertise, right? And when I don't start with gratitude, the day and the task ahead can often, start to feel overwhelming and more like I'm almost in a prize fight, but I'm fighting out of my weight class. right? Rather than having another day driving towards the mission at hand, which is the work that we do every day. Is also the idea really that this work that we do is our passion work. This is the thing that I do well, that doesn't exhaust me, the change that I can see in the world, right? Because everybody has their part of the work to do. But when I'm my best self, I can give myself to the passion of this work. And it is that moving forward is finding a way to continue to evolve with each rising challenge, right? I evolve, I can adjust, I can adapt, and then I can become involved. And as it relates to like how we feel about the work, some of this stuff will make us angry, right? We will have some grief around how we're seeing people experience things happen in the world. But it is that I feel those things because that's a part of my humanity. That's who I am. My humanity is what drives me to the change that I want to see in the world, right? But also, I feel those things, but my feelings aren't facts. And my feelings can't be the things that direct me to another bad decision, because I can react just out of anger and do something that is not appropriate or is not healthy for the movement that I'm trying to contribute to. It is just understanding that in my humanity, I'm going to experience joy. I'm going to experience disappointment. I'm going to experience anger. I'll have sadness. I'll have success. I'll have all the accomplishments. I'll have all those things. And as a part of being a human being, I don't get to have one without the other. I don't get to have joy and not have the sadness that kind of pushes me towards the work that I want to do. And moving forward for me looks like accepting that I will have all of these things, but I also have to have their counterpoints, right? So if I can give myself the permission to experience all of it and view them as fleeting moments and not get like, because if I celebrate our wins too long, then the stuff is still happening. The bombings are still happening, right? And I'm over here reveling in this success, right? If I lean too far into disappointment and anger about how I see people suffering, if I stay there, then I don't have my eyes focused on the mission of MANRRS and of any organization that I'm focused on. So moving forward, it looks like being able to honor that, yes, we had success over here, and there's also work to be done. Yes, we had disappointment and this grant was pulled, but there's also still work to be done. Moving forward is giving ourselves permission to wake up each and every day and continue towards the mission, knowing that it will be filled with the ebbs and flows of life, of our personal disappointments, and it will be riddled with all of those things. And we are the change that we've been waiting for.
Love that, Scott. And I want to frame it in another way too, as we think about those ebbs and flows. I mean, it is really important to remember there is a season to shine, to grow tall, to blossom, to bask in the light. And there is a season to pull back and to preserve our precious energy, to deepen our roots, to extend our reach, to strengthen our resilience, so that when the time comes, when the conditions are right, we are ready to reemerge and grow and flourish. And we are living, breathing, learning organisms. And so again, through these challenges, but also in our lives and our families and our communities, we're facing so many things. We have to remember that what's most important is to figure out what's right for each of us in that time and how we can best, care for ourselves and care for others. So for some of you moving forward, it could look like a lot of different things. It might be the time for you to stand up and speak out and be a visible member in your community, in our country. It might also be a time for you to step back, to listen, to learn, to go back to school, to volunteer, to learn a new skill. It might be a time for study abroad or some other opportunity that maybe you weren't planning, but actually now is the right thing for you, is the right thing for your growth and your development, your professional career, and your personal happiness. So, as you're thinking about this, there's an incredible session coming up later, the MANRRS session on pivoting to, new professions and a new focus in your work and in your life. And that's really critical, to be willing to adapt and respond to these changing times and in those dynamic ways. But remembering that improving yourself and caring for yourself is the most important progress you can be making right now.
All of those are such beautiful answers. They're amazing. One thing that I would like to tap into culturally is in Native traditions and cultures, a lot of times we look at the world through 7 generations. And that's the 7 generations that have come before us, and the 7 generations that will come after us. And that's how we make a lot of decisions, right? We make a lot of decisions from that space. And so if you think about that in the time that we're doing now, or we're living in right now, I think we look at everything that our ancestors and our elders have gone through, right? And they are still here. And during those times, like what Scott and Keegan have shared, they made those choices, right? They made those choices to sit still or to stand up. They made all of those decisions, but they had to do, and I think Keegan just said that, is to decide what was right for them in that time. It was time to sit, or it was time to reflect. But also, we're in a time where we need to look forward as well. And I think Scott mentioned this may be a time where we're planning, we're sitting back and we're thinking about what's next. What things can we be planning now? Because we've been in times of drought, we've been in time of rain, we've been through all of these different things. And one of the things that I did immediately is, I've been around for a while, but I have folks in my life that have been around longer, is I sat down and I talked to them about how they experienced times like this. And they're still here to tell the stories, right? And they talk about the energy that was happening during that time. And so I think we need to be a little selfish sometimes, right? It's okay to be selfish. And in our communities, that is not something that we're allowed to do. We're here to serve. And I know for me, we call it Indian guilt. And we need to be in these spaces, and we need to be planning, and we need to be doing all that stuff, but we're of no use to anybody else if we're burnt out and if we're like that. And fortunately, I'm the time in my life where my body's like, no, you can go for a walk, that's it, you're done, you need to sit down, because my nerves can't take it. They just can't take it. I can't be on the internet, I can't watch the news. I just have to watch my criminal minds and all my crime dramas, right? I just have to completely disassociate from everything. And that's okay. It's okay. Give ourselves permission to just say, no, not today. Not today. I'm not doing this. But then also be thinking to the future. So think to the past. Our elders have been through this. They've made it. They have lessons to teach us. Go sit down with an elder and an older, right? Do that. Sit with yourself. But also, when you have energy, when you have time, think about it and think to the future. What can we be doing after this? After we go through this space and time, what can we do with all of this energy and all of these thoughts and all these amazing things that we've been able to think up during times? Because this is a time of growth, right? When things are angsty, we have to start thinking, we have to look at the world differently. We just have to. It doesn't allow us to just sit still, but we have to do that because we can learn in those times. So I hope that helped a little bit.
Thank you all so much for your answers. So our next question is for Scott. And you talked a lot about our emotions and how one can't go without the other, and how sometimes our emotions can force us to do feelings aren't facts, right? But our emotions can't, allow us to make incorrect actions or make mistakes and things like that. So how can we make space for processing our emotions like grief and anger while still prioritizing our healing?
I'm a proponent of therapy. I am a proponent of community, and I will not say that therapy is for everyone, but I believe that everyone needs community. And so even platforms like MANRRS, platforms like Man to Man, platforms like any group thing that you can get involved with, where you can give your energy to something where there are people that are like-minded, who have like ideals, who can pour back into you. when you're feeling depleted. I think that we have to honor the fact that we feel what we feel, right? And surround ourselves with people who can provide us with a level of community to keep us encouraged. So it is that we get to feel those things. We get to figure out how we need to direct that energy, and we also have to give ourselves the grace and the space to be able to be replenished, even when we don't feel like it, because we won't wake up every day and feel like it. I think both Keegan and Nicole kind of alluded to the fact that sometimes we can give so much of ourselves and feel like we need to keep giving. The only way that this problem will be solved is if we keep giving. But none of us can pour from an empty cup. We've all, heard that in some form or fashion. But it is that it's going to be okay, right? Everything's going to be okay. And I give myself permission to tap into the network and the community of people that are around me that can help me even think of some better ways to navigate the space that I'm in. Because sometimes we can be in the trenches so deep that things start to feel hopeless, and we then start to feel helpless. And if we don't surround ourselves with people who have like minds but different thoughts, right? If we don't welcome in teammates, right, who will encourage us or give us even like different strategies to how we can get to the next goal at hand, we do ourselves a disservice. And sometimes we start to believe that I'm the only answer. Everyone's depending on me. It won't happen if I don't do it. So we have to establish community and networks so that we have the space to receive different ideas and receive different strategies for what we have ahead, and be able to actually just kind of release what it is that we're feeling. Because if we're honest about the way that we're feeling, then we'll have a roadmap and some guidance to what we can do with what we're feeling, and how we can turn those feelings into action that will be tangible and will be helpful for all of those around us. But and in the midst of all of that, we're kind of asking folks to do both and, right? So yes, strategy, but also grace for not knowing. Because there will be times when we try things and we don't get it right. And not getting it right is okay. Releasing myself from the right and wrong of this work, right? So there is my intention, and then there's the impact of the work that I do. My intention will be to make improvements. There will be times when I will misstep, or I will injure, or I will do any of those things, and it's not what I meant to happen. But being surrounded by community and having a group of folks around you who can redirect is helpful. And knowing that there's really no right or wrong, but there is good strategy, and giving ourselves permission to just kind of err and correct as we go.
Thank you for that. That was really good. No right or wrong, but there is good strategy. Keegan, with so much happening politically, how can individuals stay engaged without becoming overwhelmed or desensitized?
That is a great question, and that is a real challenge. I maybe wanna offer a couple different thoughts. I think first, and most importantly, we have to be very clear. This is not normal, and it is not okay. And in many cases, what's happening isn't legal or constitutional or ethical. We are living in a political period defined by discrimination and divisiveness and destruction and a lack of even basic human decency oftentimes. We cannot shrink away from that truth, and we have to be willing to call it what it is. Because if we don't, we risk normalizing it. We embolden those bad actors who are seeking to cause harm, or to marginalize communities, or to disenfranchise voters. So I think first, we have to stay engaged. We must be engaged. We have to keep our eyes open. We have to know what's happening and where it's happening and who it's affecting and how we might lessen, the harm to that community or those individuals, what policies or interventions might work to, improve the situation. The only way that we can understand that is if we're fully aware and cognizant and staying on top of what is happening and who's being affected. So I want to start there. We have to stay engaged, even though it's hard, even though sometimes it really hurts. Sometimes, we don't feel like we have the energy or the strength to handle it. I think, we have to also remember that the goal of many of the tactics we see being used are intentional. Whether it's to flood the zone or to move fast and break things, these are strategies politically that are meant to overwhelm us, to distract us, to make it difficult to focus on what can be done. That is by design, their intention. And so again, knowing that that is actually the reality we live in, how do we navigate that? And how do we make sure that we are doing the most we can in the ways that we can? So I think first of all, make sure that you do stay engaged, that you do stay aware, that you do keep watching and learning and listening as much as you possibly can. Now, there are times when we all have to step away from it. And I really appreciate both Scott and Nicole speaking to this, right? It's a balance and knowing when to unplug. And I will strongly recommend, and I'm speaking to myself when I say this, the death scrolling on social media is dangerous and harms us. The 24-hour news cycle is, emotionally exhausting. And again, it is not meant to inform us or to educate us. It is meant to entertain us. So refocusing on sources of media and knowledge that are reliable, that will deliver it to you in ways that won't cause you to be overwhelmed and really be driven emotionally by the information. So again, that might be, NPR or reading the newspaper, getting old school, or it might just be, finding other ways of getting that information, so that you can stay aware, stay on top of it, but not necessarily feel like you're drowning in it. I think the other thing, and I really want to emphasize what Scott shared, you have to, and Nicole did as well, you have to listen to your body and pay attention to how you're doing and how it's affecting you, right? If you can't sleep, if you're feeling anxious, if you are not finding joy in the things that have always brought you joy, if you are responding to people or quick to anger in ways that are outside of your norm, being willing to go to a doctor, to seek a therapist, to talk to your friends and your family and ask for help is really important for every one of us. Again, it might not be all the time, it might just be sometimes, or it might just because of a unique situation that's happened. So stay engaged, keep your eyes open, stay smart, because as you think about it, that is the only way that we will be able to navigate these new realities and the changing landscape, is if you're aware of what's happening and you know how to navigate it and find your fit.
Thank you, Keegan. Remembering that the information, a lot of it that we're getting is not to inform us, but to entertain us is a really key piece of that. And so I think my follow-up question just for you really quickly, what tools and platforms do you recommend students or even young professionals who have such, access to social media and things like that? What specific platforms do you suggest that they can use to kind of begin that civic action of like staying engaged?
I'm gonna not answer your question in the way you asked it.
Okay.
I think sometimes we rely too much on tools and platforms, and we think that they will be the answer. I think actually and I think we've all highlighted this in different ways, people are what matters. Relationships are what matters. Reconnecting to your community, extending your community, contacting your old professors, reaching out to those members of your community, maybe where you grew up or where you live now, that you respect and admire what they do and how they live their life, but maybe you don't have a relationship with them yet. Focus on the people and growing and expanding and strengthening your network, because that's how we can support each other. We can strengthen each other. We can work more effectively and efficiently to take action. And like you said, it may be identifying a need in your local community and figuring out who's already tackling it, what organization or what individuals, and supporting them and volunteering and sustaining their good work. Or maybe it's realizing that the work isn't happening and the organization or the people aren't in place, and you need to initiate that and you need to be that change. So I think in a lot of cases, it really is unique to each of us to look at our community, look at what's around us and the people, and figure out how can I be of most use and how can I, make the most good, and maybe focus less on, is there a good tool or a good platform to go to? Because right now I don't see a lot, and maybe Scott or Nicole have other ideas, but I don't see a lot of good accessible platforms that are going to be relevant and useful to individuals to identify their local needs and how they can take action and get involved most effectively.
So call to action, find organizations that you value that you can participate in. Great, thank you. Nicole, how have recent social and political changes impacted your leadership and your advocacy style?
Share a very specific example, but overall, I've had to do a lot of educating and re-educating folks. So something unique about Native and tribal communities is that we have a special relationship with the US government, and it's called the trust responsibility. And historically, so it's a legal and a moral obligation of the US government to work with tribes and tribal entities. Okay. So, in the wake of all of the DEI canceling and the executive orders denouncing all of this, I've done DEI work for 25 plus years. And so I don't want to take away from DEI work, but the work in Indian country is very distinctive, right? And it has a long-standing history with the US government. And so I've had to do, and I have, my best friend was just here visiting. She's the doctor of American Indian Studies, and we were having this conversation. It's literally a year-long class, so I'm not going to bore you with federal Indian law and policy, but if you're interested in learning about it, I'll do something eventually. Everybody's been asking for it again. But so I've had to re-educate. And so I've had two of my major funders. So in the wake of all of this, 4 major agencies for the US government have put out memos specifically saying Native American, working with tribes and working with Native entities is not DEI work. And it's a moral and legal obligation, and we have to do this work. But I had some funders pull back and say, hey, we are aligning with executive orders. Like, you know, we saw when the Biden administration was in, we saw that a lot of private entities, public and private entities, got in line with executive orders. Now we have a lot of folks that are also aligning, right? And so I had folks come in and say, hey, we're going to have to take some of your stuff off of our website. We're going to have to do some of this work because of this. So my initial reaction was of anger, not with them, but with the situation. And so I had to say, whoa, they don't necessarily understand this because, and I'm not doing oppression Olympics here, so do not get, that is not what we're doing here. I just want people to have a better understanding of working with tribal people, Native people, is folks came in and said, hey, we have to do this. And so Native people are one of the most invisible people, right? Not a lot of, and I don't say that because there's not a lot of us, because there are a lot of us, but also just that relationship. So the invisibility isn't just us and that we don't exist anymore, but it's also the misunderstanding or not understanding this relationship. So I had to go and pull those 4 memos that came from secretaries of HHS, Department of the Interior, USDA, all of those different things, and send those to my funders to say, we have to be doing this work, right? And so that is why. So I had to do a lot of educating, and then also, so that's externally with the folks who need to understand why we do what we do at the Tribal Agricultural Fellowship. But then with my staff, I have to remember my leadership style, because I'm a Gen X, right? I'm kind of tough. I kind of power through things, right? I don't, and I'm a woman, right? So I'm going to get through this. So we're going to do all these things. So I had to remember they are in a space where they need support. So I had to remember, put on your mom and your crazy auntie face, and you got to understand, and you got to support. So I have to understand what everybody is feeling around me is very real, and I can't be quick to dismiss it. I have to, when I'm surrounded by young people who are experiencing this for the first time, and it's coming at you 24/7 because of the news cycle and social media, because I can shut off my social media, I'm fine, but young people can't. That's just not something y'all do, right? And it's not, I can't say that. A lot of people don't shut off their social media in their 20s. A lot of people do this. But so I had to sit with them in that space and say, you know what? I understand what you're going through. And I have to legitimize that, but also give them hope that this too shall pass, right? We are going to get through this, and but I have to be mad. I got to be right there with them. I got to be mad. And I tell them, and I'm very honest with them. So when the thing happened with the funder, I called my staff. I was like, "Dog, can you believe this is happening?" So I had to be very transparent about, and I think that that's one thing. This just came out right now, but I think it's important to share, is transparency with my staff and our students that I deal with, because they called me and they're like, do we have funding? And I was like, well, luckily we have, our fairy godparents are not gonna, we're not dealing with this, right? And so, but we do have some funders that are, so we're okay. So I think transparency during this time, that was one of the things in my leadership style, is inherently transparent, but I had to be even more so transparent during this time, because like Keegan losing his job, like that was zero transparency, anything going on like that, right? People need to know that they have stability. Like, despite all of it, how am I going to feed my children? How am I going to pay my bills? Like, there's all of these things. So I had to make sure that I was reassuring our students and my staff that we're okay, that we're going to weather this storm and we're going to be okay. So that, I think I'm that way, but I even had to be more so that way during this time, if that makes sense.
Yes, the leadership styles that you talked about and how you had to remember, being supportive is really important. I think I'm sure your staff really appreciates that, especially with having, multi-generations probably in your staff as well. And also the part where you said, don't be quick to dismiss. I think especially when you're working with different generations of people, that's something easy to do. But I'm sure your staff really appreciate you being intentional with not doing that. And so my next question, we're gonna go into our rapid fire questions for our panelists. And so my first question, what gives you hope right now? And we can go in any order. What gives you hope?
Young people, because y'all have your language. I think I said this last year when I was on this. You guys are evolving language, and I love that. I love that. As a communication, I come from intercultural communications background, and the fact that you guys are evolving language during this time and coming up with names for stuff, I'm like, wow, I love that. And my garden gives me hope.
Love that.
For me, I'm most encouraged and I have the most hope in the fact that we are here. We are in a time where people would have you to believe that these conversations, that this work, that the folks who are behind this work don't exist. That MANRRS and young folks and people all around us are just sitting around twiddling our thumbs and complaining. To know that we are here, this work is happening, and even if it takes this world by complete surprise, which I'm definitely okay with, because you can't fight us, we are here and we're doing this work, right? And more than that, we don't need the glitz and the glamour, right? We are here behind the scenes with this 40 some odd people, 50 some odd people, finding a way to recommit ourselves to the work that's already being done, and finding ways to move around things that people meant to be obstacles for us. But we are making a conscious decision to be like, no, that's not the thing. Like, I hear what you said, but also there's this other thing that I plan to do. And it is this understanding that I believe that this generation of people have, that we indeed are the change that we've been waiting for. We're not waiting on anybody to come and save us, right? We know that we are going to be the ones who save ourselves. So SOS now means for us, we are saving ourselves. We're not waiting on policy change. We're not waiting on any government official. We're not waiting on those things to happen. We are a group of people who have decided that we're going to do this work and we're going to impact change on the level that we can impact change, and we'll build community around us. So then that expansion and that reach can then be even more. So when we give ourselves permission to impact change on the level that we can impact change on, we end up changing the world, without necessarily that worldview at the moment. You just start things with intention, and then it'll grow legs on its own. It'll take off and do what it needs to do. And that gives me more hope than anything.
I promise we did not plan this, but I think we are all aligned in our response. I mean, poet June Jordan said it best, and Scott just rephrased it. We are the ones we've been waiting for, right? It is that individual and that collective responsibility that we all share. And we cannot let the darkness and the disarray dim our light or let it change who we are. So we need each of us, we need each of you to live every day and lead with your values, with integrity, with justice, with fairness, with respect for institutions, with compassion for others. And it's in demonstrating those values every day in all that we do, in our words and our actions, in everything we do, in the policies we put forward, the programs we design and we build and we implement and deliver. That's how we create a better future for all of us. So again, I couldn't agree more with Scott and Nicole. We are the hope. You are the hope. Be the hope.
Wow, I loved your answers. It makes me think of my favorite musical, Hamilton. You have to be in the room where it happens, right? And I think that's what we're all experiencing right now. And so we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to take a question from the chat. The question says, what's one habit, ritual, or boundary you have created to protect your peace during this time? And I'll give it to Keegan, if you don't mind.
So two things, and I really appreciate what Nicole shared earlier. I mean, our elders are an incredible source of wisdom and knowledge and perspective, and especially for those of us that are entering that phase of life soon, what can we learn from them? What can we share with others? And how can we best shape the path forward for those following behind us is so important. So I just went back home to Iowa and I stayed with my parents in our rural community. And again, I spent a month and I intentionally reached out to, everyone that matters to me growing up and people I've lost touch with for decades and people that I always cared about, but maybe didn't take the time to spend time with. And I made that kind of a source of both strength and knowledge and wisdom gathering for myself. And it has been so nourishing and so good to help me refocus and recenter my life and my priorities. And the other really silly thing I started doing was going out into the forest every day and foraging, looking for mushrooms and crop wild relatives and just appreciating the beauty and power of nature and what is around us and what is usually at our feet that we don't value and appreciate as we walk on it. So that's been for me kind of the two really powerful ways I've reconnected and found that joy.
One thing I've done, a couple of things that I've done is for community, I've been known historically not to be the super ooey gooey lovey person. Like, I'm just not that person. I am now. I am that person now. And so I just tell everybody I love them all the time, all day, every day. I love you. I love you. My friends are blown away. They're like, that feels a lot. That feels great coming from you because you haven't always been that person. Like we always knew you cared about us, but we didn't. So I do that with my community. No matter what, I just say I love you because I do. I appreciate everybody. Everybody has such special gifts and talents. So I remind them of their special gifts and talents and I tell them I love them. That's my community, what I do for my community. Personally, every morning I get up and I make my cold iced matcha. And I walk into my backyard with my husband and I put my feet in the soil. And a lot of people think grounding is, and I know a lot of us are like, I can't be going outside without my shoes on, us folks like, no, you can't be having that. I grew up, I'm still here 52 years later, and I've walked around with my bare feet all my entire life. So I go outside and I ground myself in the dirt, in the grass, and I just with bare feet, and I sit there, and then and we took our little garden, we survey our lands. That's what we say. I go, let's go outside and survey our lands. Our little back. Hey, for New Orleans, we have a big backyard, which is kind of it's kind of a luxury. So we go out there and we do that, and then we just one thing we're grateful for that day. So we ground ourselves, put our feet in the grass, and drink our coffee and our matcha, and one thing that we're grateful for. So that's what we're doing, community and personally.
So for me, I have this is a two-parter for me. So I arrange flowers now. So my flowers started off as like I was doing it to woo a woman, just getting flowers and making sure that I was being a hopeless romantic and all of those things. But in doing that, I just kind of fell in love with flowers. I fell in love with the idea that they can be different, that they grow at their own pace, that each one has its purpose, and that they are all meant to remind us to live in the present because they don't live for forever. And along those lines with arranging flowers, I have literally started to give people their flowers. So I will have friends that I give small bouquets to and just thank them for who they are in my life, what they brought to my life, and remind them of how much it means to just kind of be here and be present for someone else. The other thing that I do is I affirm myself. And so I remind myself every day that I'm enough, I have enough. In a world where there's so much distrust, I know that I never stop trusting myself. I am safe and I provide safety for others, and I impact change on the level of my reach, and that is enough. So affirmations and arranging flowers for me have been a lifesaver.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. You've kind of touched on this last question, but it's just a final reflection for you all. Know the question was about one habit or ritual you've created to protect your peace. But this question is a bit similar, so the answers may be similar, but if you want to dive in, that's fine. If you could leave the audience with one action they can take this week to take care for themselves or their community, what would it be? I know some of you mentioned what you all do, but what's something our audience can do to take care of themselves or their community? And we'll have Scott start us off.
One thing that you can do, I think, is connect with someone in your immediate network that you don't know and just venture to start a relationship, be it professional or whatever it is, be it a mentorship style relationship. Connect with one person that you don't know that does same or similar work as you, and start building your own community. Don't wait out. But I think Keegan alluded earlier to the fact that, tools and all that other kind of stuff, the work that we can do is the work of connection. And connection starts when we reach out. And I think frequently we will operate in silos and give ourselves permission and just be like, nobody else is here, nobody else is coming to save us, like that kind of stuff. Yes, saving ourselves, but who else is doing this work on this level that I could connect with and learn something from? So one thing that I would do is encourage folks to reach out to someone and start to establish community on your own.
Yeah, and Scott, I couldn't agree more. I think that is the most important thing, right? People matter, relationships matter. It's our greatest asset. And I want to take it maybe even a bit further. I think, reach out to those people that are already there in your network, connect with new people that aren't yet, but you want to be, and that can strengthen and sustain you. Ask them what they need. How can you help them? What is it they're facing? What are they dealing with? What are they looking to achieve, but maybe don't have the capacity or the ability to right now? And maybe it's something you can help with, maybe not, and you don't have to. It's not saying that you can't do everything, you can't help everybody, but ask the question and seek to understand their needs. And in the same way, be willing to tell them what you need and what you're looking to do and what you're looking for, right? We normally talk about networks and these relationships, especially professional relationships, in terms of mentorship or job seeking. And those are the two contexts that we normally talk about it. And that is important. And that may be what you need. But it is even more important, in my opinion, to find out what they're passionate about, what they're working to achieve in their work or in their life, and figure out, are there ways you can support them and sustain them and strengthen them? And are there ways they can do the same for you? Because that's how we all do better, right? We all do better when we all do better. So being really authentic and genuine in how you engage those new people and in how you engage your network, I think is really critical.
I think in a time where our instinct is to put up walls and put up barriers and all of those things, I think, and maybe this is because my own personal journey is taking me this way, because I've been so hard and so tough all of my life, is find space to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable in a safe space, right? Not everybody deserves your vulnerability. I'm not asking you to go out on the street and do this. I'm just saying, in a place where you maybe think that there's something, is take moments to be vulnerable and say, I don't know. So as a lot of us, maybe we sit in spaces where we, some of those things, we work in space. I worked in a predominantly white space one time where I didn't feel safe to say, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that in my life, right? I don't know what that is. I think this is a time that we can be vulnerable with the right people, the people who deserve it, and say, hey, I want to learn something new. How can I, like all of those things that Scott and Keegan, those communities, right? Like those partnerships, those bridges, those connections. Be vulnerable and be like, I don't really know what you do, Nicole. Can you explain that to me? Like, take those moments to be vulnerable and not assume that you know what somebody else's job is or what they do. Be vulnerable. And because when you let that vulnerable, you learn and you build a friend, you build a friendship, you build a bridge, you build an opportunity, right? You build understanding. So I think just in a safe place, don't just run around taking your barriers and your boundaries down for anybody, but do in a safe place, let those vulnerabilities seep in and build those connections, authentic connections with people.
That's awesome. So audience, if you don't remember, find a space to be vulnerable, build that connection and find that community, and then ask how you can help. I think all of those things can really help us in this time where everybody's kind of isolated and things like that. I think all four of these strategies can help our audience in monumental ways, honestly. And so thank you all so much. As we close today's conversation, I want to thank each of our panelists for sharing your stories, your truth, and your tools. And to everyone who has joined us, thank you for making space, for listening deeply, and for showing up for yourselves and for your communities. We know that healing and leading aren't always easy. As an educator, I can definitely attest to that, especially in times like these. But what we witnessed today is a reminder that we are not alone. When we reflect, when we speak honestly, and when we support one another, we build that kind of strength that transforms not just systems, but lives. And so before you go, give me 1 second. I have a few slides. We want you all to take this survey. Let's see if I can share my screen. I think it was put in the chat, but we're gonna share a survey really fast. Desktop one, share. And if you all could give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome. We love when technology works. We do value your feedback, and so please take a moment to complete this survey at the end of the webinar. I think the link was also put in the chat. And then also, we also would like to invite you to join us for our next session. It'll be the power of the pivot. It will be Tuesday, July 15th, also at 12 p.m. So if you can take your lunch and, watch our webinar series, that would be great. And so our next session is July 15th. It's called The Power of the Pivot. If you scan this QR code, you can register and it'll send you an email reminder just so you don't forget, because I know we all have lots of things going on. And so we will have Erica Flores, Derek Mulhern, I'm sorry, Cynthia Stokely, and Courtney White will be on that panel. And so next is the MANRRS regional clusters. And so registration opens August 1st. Our student registration is $125 and professional registration is $125, and our exhibit booths are $1,000. Our Eastern regional cluster will be regions 1, 2, and 3 at the Hyatt Regency downtown, October 10th and 11th in Atlanta, Georgia. And then our Western regional cluster will be regions 4, 5, and 6 at the Denver Marriott Tech Center in Denver, Colorado, and that will be October 24th through the 25th. And so if you have any questions or any information or need more information, visit our website at www.mannrs.org. We'll also be posting it on all of our social media platforms and things like that. And then our next, if you are interested in partnering with us and connecting with Junior MANRRS or your collegiate chapters or professional network, here you can develop professional skills at all career levels, access to diverse speakers and subject matter experts, and then preferred access to job, internship, and scholarship opportunities, and then also gain a community of support in agriculture, natural resources, and related sciences. So if MANRRS is something that you were just kind of invited to today and you want more information, these are just some of the things that we do here at MANRRS. And just like our panelists were saying, building that community, right? MANRRS is, for me, even for me, the place where I found community, where I felt seen and heard. It was also a place in college where I found my friends who could work hard and play hard, right? And so I think that MANRRS is that first step in having that community. And so we want to also encourage you to keep the conversations going, right? Follow MANRRS on all social media platforms. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all the things. X, we have all the social media platforms. So whichever is your platform of preference, please follow us on there to stay up to date with all of our activities and things like that. And we also want to encourage you to contribute to our 40th giving campaign. This is the year of our 40th national conference. And so your donation helps MANRRS promote and implement initiatives to provide for our chapters. And so your contribution and your investment is really important. We have so many members across the country. And so just the little bit that you give can help us make a monumental change. So until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep breathing forward.